Greetings, fellow songwriter, and welcome back to Song Structure 101. I'm your host, Ethan, aka the Ghost Mall, and I created this series to teach you all the fundamentals of crafting solid, memorable structures for your own songs. In the previous two videos, we covered some of the most important puzzle pieces you can assemble into a great song, beginning with basic song segments, such as the verse, chorus, and bridge in video 1, and moving on to transitional song segments, such as the intro, outro, and pre-chorus in video 2. If you haven't watched those yet, please feel free to check them out now before continuing on here with video 3. I've put links into this video's description and cards to connect you with those previous lessons. But if you're ready to learn all about the remaining song puzzle pieces, the unusual and optional ones that you can use to make your tunes really stand out from the rest, then let's jump right back in. Let's start with something very simple, but also very useful: a break. As its name quite obviously implies, a break simply functions to provide some separation between two other song sections, a kind of pause or breather, if you will, before getting back into the main action of the song. Depending on how much separation you'd like to create, as well as the kind of pace you are trying to set for your song, a break can be as short as just one bar, or can go on as long as any other song section. As far as its composition is concerned, a break usually repeats some progression or motif that has already been introduced in the song. Again, the idea here is to provide some kind of holding pattern, so to speak, for a moment, before your song progresses again in earnest. So introducing something new here might not really do the trick. Breaks typically appear in a few common locations in song structure patterns, including between chorus 1 and verse 2, or between the bridge and final choruses, just to name a few. Let's take, for example, a couple of songs by a fantastic duo and one of my biggest influences, Capital Cities. On Kangaroo Court, they use one-bar breaks 3 times, a beat loop between chorus 1 and verse 2, a spoken line between two halves of the bridge, and a synth arp between the bridge and the third verse, which precedes the final 2 choruses. On their more recent track, Vowels, they opt for 4-bar breaks twice, as before between chorus 1 and verse 2, and again between the bridge and the final choruses. However, in this second example, these breaks, consisting of a chopped-up vocal phrase, might also be classified as a theme, but we'll talk more about themes in a bit. Suffice it to say that when you want to slow things down for a moment before advancing your song into the next major segment, a break may be in order. Next up, let's look at everyone's favorite epic song moment, a solo. In essence, a solo is an instrument's featured moment to stand out. For this reason, at various times and in various musical subgenres, instrumental solos have come to be associated with stellar virtuosity at their best or pretentious posturing at their worst. In fact, the presence or absence of solos is very much a stylistic feature of songs. They are quite common in jazz, country, and certain subgenres of rock, for instance, but are nearly absent in most pop and R&B, or in styles of rock that favor simplicity and straightforwardness, like punk rock. Depending on stylistic conventions and, of course, the player's skill level, solos may be either improvised or written before being recorded. Now, one might think that prior planning and honing a solo to perfection in the composition phase would be preferable. However, some famous examples prove the point that sometimes passion and spontaneity are the keys to a classic solo. Take, for instance, Jimmy Page's guitar solo on Stairway to Heaven, which was chosen by Guitar World magazine as the #1 greatest guitar solo of all time among a list of 100 entries, and which was improvised by Page. Now, as for its melodic content, an instrumental solo may consist of entirely new melodic ideas, or it may borrow melodies from elsewhere in your song. A good illustration of this is Kurt Cobain's guitar solo on Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, about which producer Butch Vig said, quote, "He basically copied the vocal melody. Instead of trying to come up with something punky or frantic or strangle the guitar like he usually did, he just copied the exact vocal melody, and it works really well." It's hard to deny the emotional impact of a well-done solo, and, while optional, it may be just the section your song needs to take it to another level. While we're on the subject of melodic, instrumental song sections, let's take this opportunity to discuss themes. Like a solo, a theme is a memorable melodic section played by an instrument, which is to say, it's not part of the main vocal melody. Unlike a solo, however, a theme is repeated at least twice during the course of the song. If it was a one-off event, it would be a solo instead. Themes often appear near the beginning and end of a tune, sometimes incorporated into an intro and outro, and may also feature as part of the bridge. In a way, a theme is analogous to a chorus, in that they both feature memorable, hook-worthy melodies that are repeated several times throughout the song. In fact, I find that the instrumental themes in some tunes, such as the saxophone theme in George Michael's awesome Careless Whisper, are more memorable than their choruses. And speaking of 80s hits, it bears mentioning that the use of theme segments was more common in popular songwriting in previous decades than it is now. In the 80s, they seemed to be the rule rather than the exception, featuring in classics such as a-ha's Take On Me, Prince's When Doves Cry, and Nick Kershaw's Wouldn't It Be Good. More recently, however, themes seem to have generally been a casualty of a mindset that favors shorter, simpler, and more chorus-centric song structures. Now, when it comes to catchy, hooky song sections, the king of them all has to be the super chorus. If you've never heard of the term before, don't worry. Super choruses are infrequently used and even less frequently discussed. That said, however, a super chorus can be a bit of a secret weapon when it comes to crafting especially memorable songs. Basically, a super chorus is a section which follows after and attempts to one-up or best a song's chorus. It does this by being even bigger, more powerful, and or catchier than even the song's chorus was. One potential key to success at this is to have your super chorus feature fewer lyrics and a simpler melody than your chorus to encourage your listeners to sing along. A couple of hit songs that have used this to great effect are Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind. Who can forget that do 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 section? Or the much more recent smash Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. I actually did a quick and dirty retro-styled remix of Shape of You once, just for fun, and I'll leave a link in the cards and description of this video if you'd like to check it out. The I'm in love with the shape of you section is the chorus, and the following segment with the vocal chants is the super chorus. Whenever you're ready to take the hookiness of your songs to the next level, try throwing a super chorus into the mix. Finally, let's conclude our discussion of song sections with a concluding song section, a coda. Similar to but also distinct from an outro, which we discussed in the previous video, a coda is a very brief concluding song segment. Part of what distinguishes a coda from an outro is length, since a coda is typically just a couple of bars or even just a couple of beats reprised from elsewhere in your song. To make the distinction more clear with a metaphor, an outro might be a concluding sentence in a poem, for example, whereas a coda is like just a concluding phrase, word, or maybe just a punctuation mark. This may take the shape of a short instrumental cue, like the bombastic guitar and drum hits that close out Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me, or the elegant acoustic guitar fill that resolves the final chord of Tension is a Passing Note by Sixpence None the Richer. Or, instead of an instrumental moment, a coda can consist of a final vocal line. One popular approach is to bookend your song by tacking one of its opening lines of lyrics onto the end as well as a coda. Some examples include Stay by Lisa Loeb, Apologize by One Republic, or the brilliant and appropriate for this discussion, Closing Time by one of my songwriting heroes, Dan Wilson, and his band Semisonic. It pays to remember that a coda can be a very elegant and meaningful way to bring your song to a close definitively. So let's take the new tricks we've discovered in this video and see if we can apply them to a new song structure formula that makes use of them. As in the two prior videos in this series, I am going to offer you a ready-made formula that you can use in your own songwriting. In video 1, I provided a basic but extremely solid song template using just verse, chorus, and bridge sections. Then in video 2, I provided an expanded template that put an intro, outro, and pre-chorus into the mix. Let's continue expanding on that here with an elaborate template that includes all our new song segments. It might go intro, theme, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, super chorus, a break, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, super chorus, a solo for the bridge, chorus, super chorus, the theme again, an outro punctuated by a coda. As I did last time, in this video, I've highlighted the newly discussed song sections in black text, while those we previously explored are in gray. This song structure formula takes things several steps beyond the expanded formula from last time. by incorporating an instrumental theme near its beginning and end, along with an instrumental solo in the bridge, as well as adding big, hooky super choruses and even a break and a coda for good measure. Now, as you can see, this elaborate formula lives up to its name by throwing together nearly every kind of song segment we've learned about in this series. And while it serves well as an illustration of everything put together at once, I wouldn't necessarily recommend taking such a kitchen sink approach to your own songwriting. Instead, it's probably best to experiment with just including one or two optional sections wherever and whenever you think they might suit a given song. As always, every songwriting and production decision we make needs to be in the service of delivering the message and emotional impact of our song, and adding too much complexity can often get in the way of achieving that. However, used judiciously, the optional song sections I presented to you in this video can help your original songs really stand out from the pack. This concludes part 1 of the Song Structure 101 course, and by now you should understand the various puzzle pieces that are key to assembling a great song structure. You should be able to identify them in your favorite songs, and you should also be able to use them in your own songwriting. However, to take your learning even further, please stay tuned for part 2 of Song Structure 101, where I will be breaking down in detail the song structures of a handful of 1980s mega hits, including the ways that they bend and break some of the conventions we've discussed so far, so that you can get an inside look at what truly great song structure looks like in practice. In the process, I'll also teach you my personal method for mapping song structures as I listen to songs, in order to really see how their puzzle pieces fit together. Following part 2, I'll do something similar in part 3, only I'll be analyzing the structures of a handful of modern hits from the last 2 or 3 years instead. That way, you can see how approaches to song structure have evolved as songwriting trends have shifted in the last decade. So, please stay tuned for these upcoming concluding lessons in Song Structure 101. To make sure you are notified when the next video is posted, please click subscribe. And if you got value from this part of the series, please feel free to click the thumbs up icon on this video to add it to your liked videos collection. Until next time, thanks for watching, fellow songwriter, and I'll see you soon in the next segment.